Hi Internet. Sword Art Online a couple years ago was the hot shit. I'm sure you all remember the hype train that was going through town in 2012, but it just kind of didn't live up to that hype. The Sword Art Online anime sucked. Let's be honest with ourselves. And I'm not here to tell you it didn't. I'm not here to tell you that the books it was based on didn't. Because they did. The second, third, and fourth books of the series sucked, and the first one was just kind of okay. I'm here to tell you the reasons for those books sucking, and try to give you some information going into the sequel, Sword Art Online 2, and the books it's based on, that maybe they won't be as bad. Because, in my opinion, those books weren't as bad, and for some very concrete reasons relating to the author, Reki Kawahara's writing style. So, that first book, Sword Art Online, Reki Kawahara, he wrote that on his own time. He wasn't an author when he decided to put that idea down on paper. He was just doing his thing and wrote that for fun. And he posted it online. It was basically one step away from being fanfiction. If it had been based on anything else, it would have been fanfiction, but it was original material, so it technically wasn't. But it was pretty much on that level. There was no editing going on. And it got 6.5 million hits. And a publishing company comes in and says, "Yo, dude, your book has 6.5 million hits. How about we turn this into a real book?" And Reki Kawahara, he wrote that book because he was a big fan of MMOs and, J-pop type stuff in general, pop culture, their, anime, manga, that stuff. And he's like, fuck yeah, I'd like to be a fucking light novel author. I can then take my royalties from that and spend all day playing video games instead of school and work. And it worked out for him. The book made tons of money, and it was pretty okay. I mean, I enjoyed that first book, and that's why I stayed with the series through the second, third, and fourth books. Because you see, what happened was, after the success of that first book, the publishing company comes back to Kawahara and says, "We're making tons of money. How about we make this into an ongoing series?" Kawahara didn't have any plans to continue the story. He didn't have any experience writing on a deadline. But who's going to turn down that author? And I'm glad he didn't, honestly, because, hey, follow your dreams, man. So he goes out and he writes this second book, and it sucks, because he has no idea where he wants to take the story. Like, there was no plan for a second arc. He just writes all these side stories to fill space. He goes back, fills the gap between the beginning and end of that first book, which, for reference, was the first and last 3 episodes of the first season of the anime. All those shitty moe side stories, that was the entire second volume. And it sucked hard. There were these little references back to the first book, like how Kirito got that sword, where he met certain people, shit like that. But by and large, it was pretty lame, and I think we can all agree on that. And if we can't, then shut up, we don't want you here. Now, the third and fourth books, he's gotten a little bit of practice with that second book, working on a deadline and all. He's kind of coming up with some ideas, so he figures, I'm ready for an actual sequel. Which he wasn't. It sucked, again. You take out the super cool death game aspect of the first book, and you demote Asuna to even less than... I don't really even consider her a character in the first book so much as a part of Kirito's development. But in the second arc, she's not even that. She's just the object that he wants to acquire. It's just lame and lame. Anyway, you come out of these books and you're going, did he just peak in that first book? Does Reki Kawahara suck as a writer? And the answer is no. Because after the practice he got with that second arc, after making those mistakes and learning from them, he writes a little thing that we like to call Gun Gale Online. The official title was the Phantom Bullet arc. Now, if the argument that he hadn't had practice is convincing enough, if the argument that he finally had developed an original idea, and you're interested to see what his next original idea is after Sword Art Online, then, leave now, because anything else I say is going to be huge spoilers. We lost the death game aspect in the second arc, and that was lame. In the third arc, in Gun-Gale Online, rather than rehashing the death game, because one of the other big weaknesses of the second arc was rehashing the plot of the first arc, he introduces a new MMO called Gun-Gale Online, which is a virtual reality shooter. And people are getting killed. Not in a death game kind of way. What's happening is people are losing matches in the game and then just vanishing, and then weeks later people turn up in their apartment and they're just dead. And an interesting part of this is that Gun-Gale Online has a very active real currency exchange going on where people actually make their living playing the game, and so sometimes these guys aren't found for weeks or months. And so the government approaches Kirito, because he's just the Mary Sue of virtual reality at this point, and they ask him to investigate it. And that's the hook into what's going on. But here's the real kicker that puts Gun-Gale Online over the top. Kirito's not the focus of the story. There's a different protagonist in this arc. The main character, I guess you could really call her a co-main character with Kirito, because there is the running story of Kirito investigating the deaths. But there's this character called Shinon, or Sinon, I don't really know how you pronounce it. And she's kind of this Rei Ayanami-esque, the Yuki Nagato, but she's kind of the very reserved girl, because she fucking murdered a guy in self-defense when she was a little kid. It doesn't glorify this. Really, her whole character arc is about her paralyzing fear of guns, because fucking murdering someone is, that's a thing. She plays Gun-Gale Online to familiarize herself with guns, to try and make them less of a huge psychological artifact to her so she can function around them. And she does fine in the virtual world, but she still has trouble with guns in real life. And this is the big spoiler. Basically, her only friend, because everyone shuns her because, OMG, it's a murderer. She's got this one friend who, sticks up for her and hangs out with her in the game and, kind of tags along with her everywhere. He's the guy killing people after they die in Gun-Gale Online. So you see where this arc has some really interesting psychological shit going on, and it's got a real original story, which you really can't say about the Elfheim Online arc. It's badass, it's got original material, it's got a great protagonist. Kirito's Mary Sue-ness is... I'm not going to say it's gone, but it's not the focus so much because he's not really the protagonist of this arc. But hey, who doesn't want to see him deflect bullets with a lightsaber?